so much for staying tuned to Champions TV. This is Nature Talk and I'm your host, Grace Achieng. Today in our studios, we have an environmentalist, that is Lawrence Rapando, who is concentrating much on environmental conservation and sustainability, and also has interest in solid waste management. So once again, welcome to our studios, Mr. Rapando. And just begin by telling us what solid wastes mean.
Okay, appreciate for your point. First, my name, as you have heard, is Lawrence Rapando, and I appreciate for the opportunity you have given me to talk about the environmental matters and sustainability in our communities. First, as we want to check, because the environment is wide, but we majorly want us to focus on solid waste management. And when I talk about the solid waste management, solid waste are materials that are discarded or abandoned within the community, and they are not well managed in our society.
Okay. And so what are some of the sources of the solid waste material?
When you check very well as the development of a nation, the country is continuing to develop. And when you check onto the sources of solid waste, first we have the sources of solid waste from industries, from households, and also we have some sources of solid waste from biomedicals, which comes from the hospitals and clinics and dispensaries from our society.
Okay. And what are some of these types of solid waste you're talking about here?
When we talk about the types of solid waste, and as you have seen that solid waste, these are discarded or abandoned materials within the society or the community or within the biodiversity. We will talk about the types. First, the type of solid waste, we have organic waste, and then we have the industrial waste, and then also we have the what we call municipal waste that is being produced within the households. And then also you'll find that other types of solid waste, they're coming from agricultural production, whereby there's waste being produced, like in rice. There's some materials that are abandoned and are not used. Yes.
Okay, and in our country today, we have the bylaws and the policies that govern the management of solid waste. Yes. Can you kindly talk about them?
When I talk about the bylaws, the regulation, or the acts that have been provided for our nation to manage the solid waste, first we have the EMCA, Environmental Management Coordination Act, that talks about how we can manage, how we can sustain our solid waste within the communities. And you will find that there is also under that categories, it talks about the solid waste, and then it talks about the liquid waste, and then it talks about organic waste that is being produced in our society. So when you are talking on to that, we have an act that manage those waste within our society. First, when you check Section 87 of our EMCA, it talks about the proper disposal of our waste within the environment, whereby you should, when you are disposing your waste, you should not pollute. You should make sure that you don't pollute the environment to affect the health of the society or to affect the health of the people. So you need to check on that section so that you help to manage the environment very well, that it's well sustained, that is not polluted. And then also when we talk about transportation, majorly you find that the people who are taking the initiative of consultancy in solid waste, and they are giving that service provision. We find that when you check onto Section 4.1, it talks about the transportation, and it discourages, on that act, it discourages the people, like the service providers on the solid waste, not just to dump the solid waste within the streets, within the public areas, and within also the recreation centers. But we'll find in our society, such a thing is happening, whereby they are just dumping and polluting the environment instead of taking the waste to a designated place by the rules of the county government or the National Environmental Management Act. And you find that now they are polluting instead of also for them to manage. And also when you check, there is also the terms and also the policies that have been put in place, the types of vehicles, the types of lorries that are supposed to be used to transport this waste. But that one, the service providers on solid waste, they are not considering it. In fact, they are becoming more and more pollutants because of some issues that are affecting them at the dumping site. So I think the policies should be considered very well. And then when you check the polluters pay, it's also a policy that is in place. The polluters pay rule, it talks about how you manage your waste. You need to pay for the pollution. But you will find that some people, they're not paying, but they're just polluting the environment. So also that one should be considered as a policy. And also the county government and the national government, they are coming up with the new policies. They are trying to come up with a bill that is also going to help in terms of waste management.
Okay, and so you find that from your previous discussion, you've told us about the sources of waste, and it's like it's coming from every part.
Yes.
And most people are really involved in wastes.
Yes.
And so who should take the responsibility of waste management?
You see, when you read our Constitution, chapter 5, it talks very well about how we should manage our environment. And it talks about environmental management, whereby when you are managing the environment, you should make sure that it doesn't affect the other people's health. So if you read chapter 5, you'll understand it very well on what it talks about the management of the environment. You should make sure that it keeps each and every person healthy, and you should manage it well. So when you check onto those sources, it's our responsibility as the citizen of this country. It's our responsibility as the youth. It's our responsibility as the women. It's our responsibility as the general society, even the children, to be responsible for the waste that we are producing. Yes, so it doesn't mean that the county government should be the one to check on that, or NEMA, but for them, they just reinforce the policies that are in place to manage the waste. But the responsibility on environmental management on solid is all of us, and it's our responsibility as the public and the citizen of this country to manage our waste. It's not for someone's responsibility.
Okay, so yes, everyone must be involved in waste.
Everyone must be involved. No matter you are a child, you are an adult, you are what, you need to be involved.
Okay. Yes. And so what are some of the effects of the wastes?
First, when you talk about the effects, when you check on the effects of waste, it's so wide, because nowadays people are dying because of cancer. Because people, they don't know about the effects of it. And it's because of the heavy metals that we are taking from foods within our ecosystem. You find that water is polluted from household waste. You find that water is polluted from the industries. You find that water is polluted from agricultural produce that we are making, that we are not using those residues. So you find that when the water is polluted, there is a way that water moves to the plants within the ecosystem or an ecological niche, and it makes the heavy metals to enter into our crops or into the food. So when we eat, it implicates the genetical mutation in our bodies. So you find that our chromosomes and genes, they're affected. So you find that it causes cancer. Another thing, the effects of solid waste, it pollutes our natural resources. So you find that when it pollutes, we have something that we call eutrophication within the aquatic life, within water bodies. It causes eutrophication that leads to the growth of algae. And this algae, it lowers the oxygen demand within the water body, causing the aquatic life, like fish, they die because there's no oxygen. So you find that also it leads to the growth of invasive species that are dangerous and are poisonous. So it affects the health of human beings. Another thing it leads to health hazards that leads to the death of organisms, health hazards that it causes diarrhea, even dysentery. It's being led by solid waste. Another effects, we have odor smells that are being produced. You won't feel good when there is a bad smell within your area. So also those are effects. Another thing, it leads to the endangering of wild species. Let's take, for example, you're dumping waste in Nairobi National Park. It affects an ecosystem of the wild animals. And another thing that I want to talk about is it leads to climate change. You see, when there's a lot of methane that is produced from dumping sites, when there's a lot of sulfur dioxide, there is a lot of gases being produced within the atmosphere. It leads to climate change, to greenhouse gases that affects the climate change, and then you'll find that it leads to desertification and also to the growth of invasive plant species within an ecosystem. So those are just few effects. Another thing, generally it affects our peace within the community. And then it affects even the prosperity, because when the soil is polluted, where are we going to grow the crops? Yes. But remember, solid waste is a gold. Yes.
How is it a gold?
It's a gold because there's a lot. We usually talk about social enterprise. And when you talk about social enterprise, there's a lot of people who are harnessing a lot of they are harnessing a lot of money from solid waste. For example, let me give you an example. There is youth who were awarded in United Nations on UN Women. Those are social enterprise. The lady won 1 million because of solid waste. She's dealing with solid waste and making organic manure. And when I talk on that, she's selling and she's making an income, a lot of it. And then also is a source of income to the community, whereby these recyclable materials like bottles, you can sell and make a source of income. As a source of income, it generates a lot of income to the youth.
Okay.
And
so it generates a lot of income only if managed in the right way.
Yes.
Okay.
And also if the people have been capacity built on what is supposed to be done.
Okay. So once again, thank you so much for staying tuned to Champions TV. Remember that you can join our conversation via our Facebook page at Champions TV Kenya, or our Instagram page at Champions TV Kenya, or at our Twitter handle at Champions TV Kenya. We will be right back after the break.